When I began my photography journey years ago, I feel like I got lucky in that I focused on several pretty simple things that allowed me to improve my skills and abilities rather quickly, and that resulted in me taking more photos that I was really proud of. And goodness, capturing an amazing photo can be so very challenging, if not nearly impossible. There are just so many things that have to all come together just to be presented with the opportunity to take a great photo. You need things like an amazing subject, which is facing you the right way. You have to be in the right position. The composition has to be nailed. You need the right lighting and so much more. Again, just to be presented with the opportunity to snap a great photo. However, I've thought about recently that I really approach photography very different today than I did about 4 or 5 years ago when I started. And this process that I use now has really allowed me to jumpstart my skills and abilities and has resulted in far more keepers. And that's again what I wanted to share with you today. And these photos are really a great example. These are average. I think they're fairly ordinary. The lighting isn't really special. But I took these photos in this style that I use now, and again, it's really allowed me to go from a photo like this to just 6 days later, a photo like this. And going from this to this, and again, just a number of days. And you know what's interesting is the more I practice, the more that I find the skills I learn really translate to different genres of photography. I was out in the street, deep in the street photography, woo! And I had such an amazing experience, and I got a couple great shots. They weren't perfect, but for the first time taking street photos, I was pretty happy with what I got. Now, the first thing I want to share is that it's not really about the settings. It's not about the perfect aperture or ISO. Not that you shouldn't focus on those things. And I've definitely spent my time focusing, learning, striving to understand things like focusing, manual exposure, and a lot more. But for me, a great photo is not based on numbers and mathematical equations. It's being present. It's seeing something special, and it's taking advantage of that opportunity to snap a great photo, one that you're proud of anyway. And when I think about really great artists, whether they're photographers, musicians, painters, they all seem to specialize in a particular style, a style of music, jazz, funk, blues, rock, or a style of photography, like I mentioned, street photography, macro photography, or maybe wildlife portraits. You decide. But what I found is when I really was intentional and I strived to take one great shot in a particular genre, and I focused on that genre over a period of time, it dramatically improved the likelihood that I would actually take such a photo. Now, one of the things to consider too is that if you look at your situation, you might hear things often like, well, just practice a lot, take a lot of photos, and maybe you're really busy. But there are things that I can do that I've done, and maybe you can do them too. I don't really know about your situation, but for me, for example, street photography is a little bit more challenging. I'm out in the foothills of Denver, Colorado, away from the city. It's a 30-minute drive. That means it's a lot more energy, effort, thought, and planning to do street photography, but I can easily shoot macro on a daily basis, literally steps from my front door. So for me, if I want to get really great at photography, picking up a macro lens and then focusing on macro photography over an extended period of time, say 30 days, 60 days, has allowed me to do just that. And furthermore, because it's really accessible to my lifestyle, I take more photos, which we all know. It's like, of course, you're gonna get better if you take more photos. But having the forethought to think, well, you know, it would be really easy for me to pick up my camera and take more photos of my dog or my kids. So I'm gonna do that. And what I've learned is when I do that, I get more comfortable with my subject. I start really appreciating the intricacies of a wasp and their really unique eyes, or my dog and his big nose. And now and then, I'm able to snap a great photo because I'm just doing it more often. So step number one is to get really specific about a certain style or genre of photography that you'd like to improve in. And I think it makes so much sense to look at your lifestyle and to look what would be really accessible and simple for you. And then step number two is to get realistic about your lifestyle, but at the same time to commit for at least 30 or 60 days to this new style of photography that you want to strive to improve. So if you're super busy and you've got a day job, but you've got a beautiful dog at home, take photos of your dog or your child or your partner, or a beautiful street or tree or whatever it is that's accessible. And then item number three is to focus on composition. Because here's what I found: even if you screw up with the camera settings, but you nail the composition, then the likelihood that you take a photo that people love is much greater than if you're taking a great photo, technically speaking, perfect white balance, perfect ISO and aperture, and everything is perfect on a technical manner. But we're not talking about science. We're talking about photography, which is a marriage of art and science. The science is the numbers, the f-stops, all the technical details, but more important, in my opinion, is what we're taking photos of. This photo of the full moon rising over Sloan's Lake is a great example. A lot of people loved it. It was shared hundreds of times online. It was liked, commented on, but it was rejected by a popular photo site, and it should be. It was a poor photo. There were all kinds of artifacts, but I got to tell you, in the moment, that was such a magical experience, and maybe next time I'll improve on it. But what I got right was the composition, and I think for me, that's the thing that has allowed me to take photos that I'm proud of. And then item number three is to watch, listen, and learn. If you're interested in street photography, and that's accessible because every day you walk to work, well, then watch other street photographers on YouTube. Listen to podcasts about, you guessed it, street photography. If that's not accessible, if it's about portraits of the family dog or your spouse or your significant other, then focus on that, and then pay attention to the photographers on YouTube that are crushing it in that one specific genre. What I found is when I focus on that one genre, I get deep fast. I start really learning about techniques and tactics, things about shadows or composition or macro angles, or really like things like diffraction that you hear about in macro photography and really any kind of photography. But that's the thing that starts to tie it together when you're focusing and practicing on a daily basis. And then again, in step three, when you're listening, watching, and learning, like instead of listening to music on the way to work, listen to a podcast. That way you're taking in information about the thing you're passionate about. Now, here's another thing you can do is check out this video on the screen about macro photography, and one other video that YouTube thinks you'll like, and I liked it, maybe you will too. I wanted to thank you for tuning in to One Perfect Shot. I'll see you on the next one. You dig?